Hi everyone, my name is Jessica Eaton and I'm going to be sharing my favorite lesson plan from week 10. My favorite lesson plan comes from the reader response activity, and it is a collaborative authors / collaborative writing activity, and I would do this with my ninth grade class. I'm going to simulate that we just finished Orson Scott Card's novel Ender's Game. And chapter 15, we see that Ender, after he's destroyed this race, the buggers, their planet, they actually move to the planet and they start building these colonies there. And so chapter 15 follows Ender there. And on this planet, Ender ends up finding a queen larvae, a fertilized queen larvae. So this could potentially turn into an actual bugger and they could restart the bugger race. And so Ender actually takes it upon himself to kind of help the people find sympathy for these people, for this race, by becoming speaker for the dead. And so this is the passage that is kind of inspiring this activity. The book that Ender wrote was not long, but in it was all the good and all the evil that the Hive Queen knew. And he signed it, not with his name, but with a title, Speaker for the Dead. On Earth, the book was published quietly, and quietly it was passed from hand to hand until it was hard to believe that anyone on Earth might not have read it. Most who read it found it interesting. Some who read it refused to set it aside. They began to live by it as best they could, and when their loved ones died, a believer would arise beside the grave to be the speaker for the dead, and say what the dead one would have said, but with full candor, hiding no faults and pretending no virtues. Those who came to such services sometimes found them painful and disturbing, but there were many who decided that their life was worthwhile enough, despite their errors, that when they died, a speaker should tell the truth for them. So what I would have my students do is to actually write this short novel that Ender wrote. And it would be a collaborative activity. Obviously, it wouldn't be as long as a novel. It would be more of a short story. And there's a few different ways that this could go. They could either talk about all the good and evil that the Hive Queen knew has happened previously, or they can talk about all the good and evil that the Hive Queen sees in the future. So I would kind of just let students decide based on which way they want to go. The learning outcomes for this activity, I want them to be able to use previous textual analysis and knowledge to write this short story, and I want them to use their knowledge of the main character to write this short story. So they would need to know a lot about Ender as well. So hopefully all of this stuff we have already covered in the other lessons, so this can just be a summative activity to kind of bring that all together. And then, of course, I want them to know what a collaborative author is, and that'll be something new, and I'll have them do an exit ticket to show me that they understand that. Whereas for the first two outcomes, their stories will show me their understanding of those things. So I'll have them turn in a paper copy, and then I'll also have them present them to the class as well. So I will start with a large group activity. I'll let them discuss chapter 15 since we would have just read it. They haven't had a chance to debrief and kind of discuss the importance of this chapter, so I want to give them some time to do that. And then to talk about what a collaborative author is, I want them to do a think, pair, share activity, kind of just them assuming and inferring what a collaborative author is, and then I'll let them know that that's what they're going to be doing. I'll break them off into small groups, let them begin to brainstorm, and let them to begin to write their collaborative story. And then once it's done, they'll be able to share it. So that's kind of my favorite lesson from this activity, or from this week's lessons plans, and I look forward to hearing what your guys' favorite activities were too.